Batgirls issue 5. Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad writing with Jorge Corona on the art. Do you know what's funny? Like, the first scene of this issue, I was like, this feels like a bit of a chore. This is overly wordy. The annoying narration that's just too much is back. It's a car chase where the Saints, the assassins in the mech suits are coming after the Batgirls. What is fun though is Babs kind of joins in the fight. Like, she sort of comes in halfway through the scene on her bike, and like Steph and Cass are in the car that they've had for the last few issues. So it does turn into a fun action sequence, but it was kind of in that messy vibe where I was like, and it felt like they'd kind of dealt with the Saints by the end of the scene, and I'm like, these have been kind of dipping in and out of this book since issue 1. It's kind of weird that they've always kind of felt like a secondary threat, and it's never really escalated beyond that. So I'm still feeling a little bit strange about that. But what I will say is that I did really enjoy where it went after that in the book, which is, aside from the fact that Babs steals the robot dog and reprograms it so she now has a robot dog in the book. But they're following coordinates because they're trying to figure out where the villain is they're after. The graffiti artist, and then you've also got Dante, who they're going to discover they're connected. And we knew there was a connection at the end of the last issue of some kind. If it turns out that Dante's actually his old therapist from Arkham Asylum, which is where Steph and Cass end up. They're following coordinates to trace where he is, where the signal's coming from that's been broadcast, and they end up at the abandoned Arkham. And they reference the tower. They're like, wait, why would anyone be here? I thought everyone got moved, and they have. It's it's now this creepy old abandoned building, which is an interesting version of Arkham, in the sense that it's a very classic story trope, is having the big old abandoned mental hospital, but it's one thing for that to now be Arkham because it has been abandoned. So it's just kind of like, we know the history of this place because it's been such a feature in Batman for decades and decades and decades. So that's kind of neat. But yeah, they discover this connection that the villains are connected. Babs is actually going to see this Dante guy, not knowing that he is the main villain, but he's got his mask on with the name that he sort of gave himself. Like, it was Spellbinder that he said his name was in the last issue, and does attack her by the end of the issue. And we get there's a very horror movie set up by the end here, where Steph and Cass are at the abandoned Arkham Asylum, and the mind control stuff is like got the reporter and like an army of people, so they're basically zombies. And then the only part of the narration that I actually quite liked in this issue is that Cass jumps down. It's a great sort of like really big panel of her jumping with her wings spread out down to this horde of what is essentially zombies. Not zombies she can kill because they're just mind controlled. They can be brought back, but the narration talks about how Cass, like anyone else would compare this to a zombie movie, but Cass can't because she's never seen one. But it points out in exactly 3 weeks, Cass will watch Night of the Living Dead for the first time, and she's going to love it. And then you turn to the next scene, and Babs is there, and I thought it was really weird they didn't make a joke about Barbara, because that's the famous line from Night of the Living Dead is, "We're coming to get you, Barbara." I wonder if they'll maybe pay that off next issue with someone saying that. I don't know. But yeah. So yeah, Spellbinder's got Barbara at the end of the issue while Steph and Cass are dealing with this mind control zombie horde at the abandoned Arkham. Yeah, I really liked the back half of the issue. I think once it got into it and it was the investigation, it was going through the creepy Arkham Asylum, it was all that stuff. I got more into it because it slowed down, it simplified, and it kind of just focused on one specific thing, which is kind of the problem this book's had, is it had a couple of too many side plots just running alongside everything else. So once it got that first scene out of the way, I was way more into it. I will say Cass does feel like her voice, she's a little bit too talky at times. I think when Babs shows up on her motorbike, she says, "Hey boss, nice bike," which felt like a very un-Cass-like sentence to me.
You just say nice bike.
Yeah. I think Cass saying "Hey boss" is actually the problem I have with it. It just feels weird for her to say "Hey boss," but at the same time, it does acknowledge her past with her lack, or her less talkative self, because she tells someone else they talk too much. In fact, there's actually the page where she's jumping down and her wings are spread out, which is a really fun line coming from Cass, because obviously she's known for being silent. So yeah, I was into the issue quite a bit once it got into the main stuff past that first part. And I do still think it's kind of weird that the Saints, which the narration promises it's not the end of them, but they basically defeat the Saints and prove that Simon Saint's actually dead, and it's actually the seer who's been tricking you into thinking that Simon Saint's giving you orders. And as a result, I was like, oh, that's weird, because these were set up by the end of first issue. We've seen them a few times throughout the book's run so far, and now they're taken care of in the opening scene. And part of me was relieved, because like, okay, that's over now, but part of me also felt like, well, it's kind of weird they didn't get focused on for a whole issue until they got defeated, so that was a bit weird. But also the narration's promising that they're going to be back in some form, so I don't know what to make of it. Maybe this will click together a little bit better as it goes. But yeah. So I will say I was a little worried about reading this issue, because these issues have been a bit wordy, the narration's been a bit overbearing. But there are definitely sequences in here that do go a bit more quiet, which I appreciated. And like I say, 2/3 of the book quite enjoyed. First third was a bit haphazard and a bit too much going on. But that's been kind of the story of this book since it started, pretty much. It's just a case of like, can we enjoy where the plot's going? And for the most part, I am. But yeah, you probably could have saved the Saint stuff and the serial killer stuff till later, and try to tighten up and just streamline what this first arc has been up until this point. Art's still very good. There is the one or two odd faces, but the stylized, angular designs and the line work do give it a very distinctive sort of punk, sort of pulpy vibe, which has been consistent throughout the whole book, because it's been Corona in all the issues. Actually, barring maybe one, but it's been mostly Corona. So, I'm happy to give this a solid 7, I think, in the end, which I didn't think I was. And when I was reading the start of it, I thought the first few pages, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm into this. And then it kind of won me over by the end, which was nice. So it's always good when that happens.